Great, thanks. All right. So today's demo would be, or today's agenda would be mostly about uh, BW 7.3. What exactly is business warehouse, and what do we do in that? What is the architecture? What are the different objects that are there in BW? That's what we'll be looking at today. Uh, So I am not too sure about the audience, whether you have an idea with SAP or if you don't, but I thought I will do it from the fundamental level as to go with trying to tell what exactly is SAP, and we'll try to understand from that standpoint how BW came into existence. All right. So today's demo will all of you must be knowing what exactly is in the ERP, enterprise resource planning. This being a word that's been there around in the market for a while now. And just to focus on what exactly this means, in an enterprise you have so many different modules or different activities that happen. And usually what happens is all of them have individual systems that handle your data. For finances, let's say you have Oracle Finance. For HR, you have, let's say, something else. And sales and distribution, you have another different system. But what happens is, for you to make decision, or for decision-making process, all of that data has to be interrelated with each other, right? So whenever there is a change in something like your sales, then automatically your finance has to be hit. Whenever you do your purchasing, let's say your inventory, and then your outflow of cash, all of that has to be interrelated with each other. But if your systems are not integrated with each other, then you will have to manually do those tasks of relating them. So they came up with this big word called enterprise or ERP, and this tries to bridge the gap between these individual functions or modules or systems, and then they try to bring one common application across the entire enterprise, and which is integrated with each other, so that the moment there is some change in the one system, automatically that is reflected instantly on the other system as well, or on the other module as well. So that's the solution that ERP brought in. SAP is just another ERP solution that is available now. So it stands for Systems, Applications, and Products for Data Processing. R3 was an older version. Stands for Real-Time Tier 3 Architecture. What we have right now is ECC. ECC stands for Enterprise Central Component. Your basic systems are divided into two. Your OLTP, Online Transaction Processing System, and OLAP systems, Online Analytical Processing Systems. Now, on a daily front, now let's say your sales, or your purchasing, or your HR, your quality, your finances, your material management, all of that is handled at the front end at your transaction level, and that all that happens on your transaction processing system. In SAP, we call that as SAP R3 or ECC. So these are the different names that you call that as. All right, but all of them are still the same. Now, in broad sense, we call that as ECC, Enterprise Central Component. Now, your functional consultant, the guy who has a domain experience, goes and models all of that, meaning he customizes so that, okay, he'll create the order as how it should be going, right? Your company code relationship with your controlling area and your client and all that will be done by a functional consultant. Now, when you're data actually processing at production level, they're all integrated so that the moment you assign something or there's some tax on one thing, automatically it is hitting all the other modules as well, all the other functions. So there is a lot of transparency in the system. You will know where exactly the changes are happening, where your sales orders are processing, what are the changes on your finance side, on your, so all of that will be listed very automatically and in a very sequential manner. Now, this is what SAP is good for. They know the business inside out, all right, or any vertical almost. Okay, so that's the reason why SAP as an ERP is such a tremendous success. Now, it integrates a lot of different modules. All right, so like I said, you have different functions that happen in the system, and we call these functions as modules. It can be sales and distribution, could be material management, production planning, or controlling, or profitability analysis, or general ledger, accounts receivable, all of these. Okay, and all of these fit into the transaction processing system. The common language between all of these systems is called the ABAP. That's the coding language, that is the underlying language that is there under each of these modules. But under this ABAP language is again built with C and C++. So, but the language that we use for customizing is called the ABAP, Advanced Business Application Programming. So it follows again the client server architecture like any of the systems. Now you have web-enabled systems as well. Now, just to go a little into the SAP system. Now, like any other system, the SAP system also has to be done on a server, and then you will have work processes involved and all of that. Now, when these transactions happen, your data is collected into your transaction processing system, which you will use for reporting. All right. At the end of the day, all that matters is probably for your decision maker. He wants to know whether he made profits or whether he made losses in that particular day. He might go a step ahead and see in which areas he has actually made profits, in which areas he's made losses. Okay, and that's where it stops. But your middle-level management will look into a little more intricate detail. You will try to understand in which particular area, in which particular segment of market they're not doing well. How do we analyze that? Is it a particular sales representative who's not able to perform? Is it a particular product which is not doing good? Is the strategy wrong? So all of that we will be able to analyze. Now, can we not do all this analysis in the R3 side or in the ECC side or in your transaction system? Yes, you can do it. You have reports that are built that you can execute a transaction. It will pull out all the data and then execute your report. You will be able to see the report, and you still can take decisions based on that report as well. Only thing is customizing that report to fit into what exactly you want to do, or instantly change your requirement, gets a little tricky and difficult because there is a lot of coding involved. Now, again, that is one side. Then the other thing is, I was talking to you about the servers and the work process under the ECC system, right? Now, you will have a work process which will help you run the system. It's not just about SAP, but be it your normal computer as well. So it will have some work process for you to go and use, and beyond that, the system will try to get a little slow. That's when your CPU usage goes up to 100% and then it completely stalls and all that happens. Now, your SAP system also is probably a little enlarged picture of that. It also has a server. You will have work process assigned, and when people log into systems, these work processes are being used up as well. Now, a business operating system, which is being used by all the front-end people for doing their daily transactions, when they log in, similarly, the work processes also get used up. and you don't have an infinite set of work processes for everybody to use, there is always a limit based on the kind of server that you're using. And at some point, if you have too many people logging into it or too many sessions open automatically, the number of work processes available will also go down. And you have different kinds of work processes. You have work processes for background jobs, you have work processes for your printing, you have work processes for locking, and your background jobs. So there are different ways and different work processes that are there on the system. So when many people log into the system for their daily business operations, and these work processes are used. Apart from that, over and above just logging and doing your daily processing, when people run reports, these reports consume a lot of work process because they have to fetch data from these different tables that are there in the system, and they have to bring that data here, probably calculate the views, how they're related with each other, and then finally give you a report. All right. So when you run a report, let's say you're running a general ledger report, and then it's taking a lot of time for you to execute. And you understand, or if you observe, you will see that your system will slowly, the performance of the system will be going a little slow. The reason for that is because when you run a report, the system will start using up work processes that are free, and because of which you will find a little clogging, and people who actually want to use this work process, they will not have enough work process, so your system is kind of hanging. Okay. Just a second. Right, we will come to the message dialogue and all that. I'm just giving a complete high-level picture of how these are. So you have dialogue process and work process. Dialogue process are more about, I mean, SAP is a system where it always talks in the form of dialogues. You have screens, and then you enter a transaction code, and the system responds with a screen. You enter something on the screen, you give in those details and save it. So the system will give you another screen. So it's always a dialogue. Okay. So, so when you say dialogue, you will have two dialogue process and one work process being used all the time. So that's why there is always a limit. Okay. Now, what I'm trying to drive at is when you run multiple reports and different people, not just you, there will be a lot of people in the enterprise. When they run these reports, there is a possibility that these work processes become extremely low, and your entire system goes, the performance goes a little slow because you don't have enough work process for others also to execute. And this happens, and when it becomes slow, it is not just you who's affected. Everybody who's doing their online transactions, they will get affected. So SAP thought of a solution. They thought, why do we have to pressurize this transaction system when we can go ahead and try to find a solution outside the system which does not put too much stress on the transaction system? That's when the inception of BW started. All right, and they tried to experiment this with finance module, and what they did for you to execute the same thing in an outside system, what you have to do is you will have to bring all this data that is there in your finance module outside, and then you can start building your report, right? So they have built one small data mart outside the ECC system, and they call it as the finance data mart. And then they moved all that data from ECC relating to finance into that data mart, and then they try to run reports on that. Since it is a completely separate system from the ECC, the system is able to, or you are able to report exclusively on that system without causing any pressure on this ECC system. All right. So that is where it started, the BW, right? And then slowly they started adding module after module, module after module, and then they have tried to optimize the structures that are there. Here you also have, or this particular BW or SAP Business Warehouse incorporates the concept of ETL, extraction, transformation, and loading, and it also has a tremendous modeling area as well. Okay. Now, when you consider your report, when you want to execute a report, all right, there are a few things that you need to understand. SAP does not deal with small amounts of data. There's huge amounts of data, millions of records. And these millions of records have to be, when you query them, the result has to be there on your report immediately. All right. So the system should have models that are able to accept, meaning when you load data, it should be able to accept that huge amount of data into that particular model, and also should have the capability to, when you run a query, bring all that data out into the report also in a very fast manner. It should be able to bring out the data required for that query also in that really fast manner. So it has to be optimized both for loading and also for reporting. All right. Now, you should also at the same time have the capability to analyze data from different dimensions as well. So data service, BW is one tool which is an OLAP system, analytical processing system, where your data from different modules come into from ECC are moved into the warehouse. Okay, and then we should go and organize this data, and so that analysis part becomes simpler. If you again bring the data as it is from ECC into BW without any organizing of data, then there's no real use, because you will still be doing a similar thing. So for you to organize your data, so what happens in ECC is you get data from different transactional processing systems. So let's say ECC looks something like this. You have data coming in from different modules, and all of that is stored in different systems. So now if I ask you what are the number of matches that are there, you probably might start from the left and start counting. All right. Now, but what we do in BW is we take this entire data. We know what kind of data is coming in, from where it is coming in. So we segregate data, model data, and then we try to organize this data so that for somebody who's trying to do an analysis or trying to make a decision, it becomes simpler for him. So we take this entire set of data, like the matches, and we try to organize this data. And you will see that if you go to BW, your data is arranged in this format. Now, asking you to count your data from that particular system to count data in this particular system, you will find that it takes a lot lesser time for you to go and count how many matches are there in this system than if you look at BCC system. All right. So this is what we do in BW. Basically, we try to organize the data so that the entire process of trying to make decisions for decision maker will be simpler. All right. So now what happens is your BW is basically segmented into three major parts. All right. So even our training is segmented into three major parts. One is your extraction. Extraction is the process where we move the data from ECC into BW. Now we're trying to bring down the stress on ECC from reporting on ECC, and then we're trying to do that on a separate system, a very standalone system which does not affect your ECC system for reporting. Right? And for you to do that, all that data that is contained in your ECC has to be moved into that particular system. Right. So the process of moving that entire data from ECC into that particular system, which is BW system, we call that as extraction. And there are different ways of extracting data. Okay. You might have data being extracted from individual tables. You might have data being extracted from a complete application, your sales application completely, or your logistics, or probably your business content extractors. So there are different kinds of extractors built for different scenarios. and then you will use these to extract data from ECC into the BW system. And at the time of extraction, once you extract data, when you start bringing the data, you go ahead and place that in your BW system. The gateway where you actually place your data is called the PSA level. Okay, the gateway for ECC, I mean for BW, is called the PSA. PSA stands for Persistent Staging Area. So before you load data into the BW system, your gateway where it can be staged is called your Persistent Staging Area. Now you're bringing the entire data from ECC, and then you're trying to bring that into the BW system. Okay, so it is not always a happy situation that okay, you take this data, place it in another system. The system has to understand what kind of data you're getting, right? So that is where you tell the system that okay, this structure of data is coming in. All right. So whenever you're extracting data from ECC, you will mention what is the structure of that extraction or that extractor. So we call that as data sources, and then we replicate that structure onto the BW, so that the BW is aware of what kind of structure of data is coming in. Okay, and this structure is defined at the persistent staging area level as well. Now, once you bring this data to the staging level, from there you can go ahead and transform your data. Meaning, you might have business logic that you need to implement. So before data is actually moved to your targets where it is stored, you will want to go ahead and add some business logic so that your data, when it is reported, you can actually see what kind of data that is necessary. Your business logics could be anything. It could be from excluding a few company codes, or you're doing a lookup into different other systems for data integrity. All of that can be a part of your business rules. So once you do all your transformations, your business rules, then you need to load data into some tables or structures or something that will physically hold that data. And these structures have to be optimized for loading and also reporting. Okay. And these structures play a very major role in how what kind of data you should be placing in these individual structures. And this concept, this entire concept is called as modeling. Okay, so you have the extraction part where you're extracting data from ECC, be it any kind of an extractor, logistic, business content, or generic extractor. So you bring all of these data from ECC, and then you transform your data once you place them at the PSA level. Once your transformation is done, then next is your loading property, where you will have to load it into some structures. And these structures are nothing but your cube structures, your DSOs, and your info objects, and all of these structures are there. And you will have to go and load data into these structures. Now, based on whether you're loading detailed level of data or summarized level of data, you will have to know how to choose which object you should be picking for loading data. And that's where your entire modeling concept will be coming into picture. You'll also have administration concept coming into picture, where you will need to know which objects you will have access to. How do you monitor your jobs? How do you monitor your data in your queues, in your DSOs, and all that? How do you give authorization for somebody? So all of that we will be looking at in our administration. So you can do your monitoring of jobs, your scheduling of jobs, your administration, all that comes as a part of it. So we basically have three segments in our training program as well. We try to understand extraction majorly from ECC and flat files. How do we build extractors, what kind of extractors, and how do we customize the extractors. That's what we will be covering in the extraction part. Transformations, what kind of transformations, how to do different kinds of transformations, complex transformations, basic transformations. Do that. Once you do your transformations, into what would you load your data? Do you have cubes, or do you have flat structures? Do you have multi-dimensional structures, or do you have a process for loading all of them one after the other, or you have hybrid structures? So all of that we will be looking into modeling part, where we try to understand DSOs and the architectures behind these. Are they multi or are they extended star schema? Are they flat structures? Is there extended star schema, multi-dimensional structures? How do they interrelate with each other? What is the concept? What is surrogate ID? All that we will be looking into when we're dealing with trying to understand the underlying architecture of each of these objects, be it a cube, be it a DSO, be it a hybrid structure, or anything for that matter. So we'll look into architecture and we'll see how to load data. So the extracted data from ECC, how do we kind of go and push it into a container in BW is what we will be looking into modeling. Okay. Now, you don't have to keep doing that all the time, right? So you build your structure once and for all, and your processing, it's not just as simple as just building a cube and loading data. This sometimes takes 3 to 6 months for you to analyze data and then build exactly the cubes that are necessary. Because you have to understand your data from the scratch. What are the different kinds of objects that are there? Are they measures? Are they characteristics? Then what kind of analysis could go through this? And when you do your analysis, since you're using a huge amount of data and you're loading that into a warehouse, is there a specific set of data that you'll always be hitting where you build your aggregates? Is there any business rules that we need to execute? So all of that we will be looking. And we also have, once we load data into the individual cubes and your DSOs, your cubes is the central component of BW, so we usually tend to talk in the cube terminology. So all of these objects into which we load data and on which we can actually report data, those are called as information providers. Okay, so they have the information, but the information is only made known when you try to put it at a good presentation format. And that presentation format is nothing but your Business Explorer, which is your reporting structure for BW. Like how you have business objects as reporting tools, you have the Business Explorer in BW as the reporting tool. All right, so you have a suite for it. You have the BEX analyzer, you have the web analyzer, and these different reporting tools are available for you to go ahead and report your data from your information providers, your cubes or your DSOs or your info objects. From there, data can be moved and it can be consumed at the reporting level, which is your Business Explorer. So we'll be looking at Business Explorer as well. Okay. So the entire question. We have a question here. Can it connect to non-SAP sources? Yes, wonderfully. You can connect to SAP and non-SAP systems, but the integration between SAP systems is better than non-SAP systems. All right. So in the SAP systems, your major connection is to ECC system, which will usually be there. So the system is also able to connect to databases through DB Connect. It is able to connect through Universal Bus Connect to flat structures or tables like JD Edwards. You're able to connect to web services. You're able to connect to data services and external systems, flat files. All of these connections are there. These are common for any ETL tool, be it Informatica, BW, data services, anything you have, these multiple sources that you can connect to. With 7.3, I mean, there is a little glitch when you're dealing with non-SAP systems. Right? For example, I worked on JD Edwards with BW, where we had a few source system errors. Now, it will not tell you why exactly you have an error. It just is intermittent. Sometimes it is a success, sometimes it is just a failure, but you don't really have a reason why it fails or why it goes. So some things like that can be avoided when you have another system which can handle your non-SAP systems. With 7.3, you have this extra layer added into BW, which is data services. So in case you want to connect through non-SAP systems, you can directly connect through data services through BW 7.3, and you can extract your data from non-SAP systems as well. All right, the transformations will be invoked the moment you connect through data services, and then that can be handled. But we majorly deal with SAP systems when we're dealing with BW system because of how the integration is so tightly coupled. Okay, so this is what we will be looking at in our training. So we will be looking at majorly three concepts. One is modeling, your reporting, and your extraction. Okay. Transformations can be handled. If you have a little knowledge with ABAP, that will be awesome. Because as much as possible, we try not to use ABAP code, but at the end, due to so much of customizing, we will sometimes need to use ABAP coding. So a little knowledge with coding is appreciated, and it will help you during your real-time work experience. Okay. So any questions relating to this at this moment? Can we choose what is the difference between data targets, info sources, and info targets? So data targets or info providers, info targets, all of these will refer to the final target where you load your data. Okay. Usually your high end of your loading data will be either into cubes or DSOs or hybrid providers. All right. So we will load data into these, and then these have optimized structures. Okay. Both for loading and reporting, and each of them is specialized for different usage. One is for, let's say if you're talking about a DSO, this is a two-dimensional structure which is optimized for detailed reporting. Okay, and your cube is a multi-dimensional structure for summarized reporting. So based on what kind of data you're getting, you will go ahead and segregate your data into each of these individual info providers. Your info source is a structure which will decide what kind of structure data is being loaded through into BW. Okay. It's a 3.5 terminology, info source, where all your logically related objects, your info objects, are termed or connected with each other, and that is called as the info source. What is the difference between BW and BI? There is not a lot of difference between BW and BI. Along the way, whenever SAP upgraded to a new version, they kept changing the name. They had BIW for a while. They had BW for a while. Then right now, a generic terminology of BI is being used. So you don't mention whether it's BW 7 or BW 7.3. You just say BI. All right. So. You can majorly choose any database. So it will be more of an administration front question. You can use Oracle DB, you can use MaxDB, you can use SQL. Now with the latest availability of HANA, you can use HANA also as an underlying database for BW. The proprietary tool for BW is Business Explorer, but you have the capability and the integration to connect to the entire suite of business objects reporting tools. You can connect through Webby, Crystal, dashboards. Your reporting can be done on those as well. We will not go extensively into user exits and baddies, basically because you will need a lot of knowledge with ABAP when you're dealing with those. Uh, it is not that you always require to use baddies. That is definitely not the case. Baddies are very exceptional where you use in BW. It will always be a good thing if you have a knowledge with them, but it will definitely require, the logic is actually simple, but implementing that with your objects in BW requires ABAP knowledge. So these are the few questions that I have here. What is the difference between data targets, info sources, and data providers? Can we choose any database for BW? What is the difference between BW and BI? Can we choose any database for BW? Right. So any other questions you have, guys? Alright, so we will be going with the fundamental concepts where we try to understand the architecture of each of these structures. The central schema that you have for BW is the extended star schema. So we will first lay our foundation understanding the extended star schema. What does it bring into BW? Why did they choose the extended star schema? How different objects relate with each other, and what are the different objects available? What is the granular level? What is the smallest physical unit which will hold your data in BW? How are these related with each other? Can we access them outside systems? So we will go ahead and look into those. Somebody has a question. Richu? Richu, I have unmuted you. Do you have a question?
Yeah, so just want to identify like what is the difference between BW and BI, and how are they related to business objects?
Like I just said, BW, BI, in generic terminology, they are all the same. Okay. With every version that they kept improving, they came up with different terminology. Sometimes they call it as business warehouse, then they call it as business information warehouse, business intelligence warehouse, then they call it as business intelligence as a generic term. But BI basically deals with intelligence. When you say intelligence, it's definitely reporting. Okay, so after underlying objects are created, you have an entire solution with the models. Also, your reports come along. So that is a BI solution. So here a proprietary tool in BW is Business Explorer. That is a proprietary reporting tool for BW. Now with business objects also coming into picture and acquisition by SAP, they're also streamlining to use a few tools mandatory with BW. So those tools together with BW, we call it as BI.
Okay. And another question, is it mostly a functional role, or is it like a technical role? As you said, like a bit of ABAP is required. So is it like a technical role, or would it be a functional role?
So can I bring, if I bring in a new term, techno-functional? So you will need to have a little understanding with functional to make sense of what you're doing. Usually what happens is we end up just trying to, I mean the process is the same as we go along, be it your data coming from finances or be it your data coming from, let's say, sales. Your usual job description deals with how to build your structures, how to monitor your jobs, how to, so those will be your underlying roles that will be given to you. So what usually people do is just start working on that and all that. But it'll be more fun if you understand the functional side of how data is coming through. So usually we suggest that they first start off with a production role, production support role, because you tend to see the different data coming from different modules. So you make sense of how to relate this data with each module. Okay. And then once you're comfortable with relating data, then you should get into development, where you will start building the actual structures. And since I told you, customization will definitely involve a little bit of ABAP code. So if you have knowledge with ABAP, that is much appreciated. That will help you all the way.
Cool. Thanks.
Does knowing BI will help in HANA and data services? BI is a concept. So in HANA and data services now, what is happening with HANA is that's an extremely fast case of reporting for a few customers who cannot wait for the next day to see their reports. The system is slowly moving towards that concept where people want to see their results immediately. HANA doesn't have the concept of super modeling like how you have with BW. Your analysis is limited there. So what is happening is they're coming up with, or they have come up with a version where you can use HANA as an underlying database under BW. Okay. So in that scenario, you will have a little change in structures. You have info cubes optimized for HANA, data store objects optimized for HANA that you build. You don't really see any change when you do the build. It's a superficial way. The system will try to go ahead and make the changes on the underlying. You will move it from an extended star schema to just a star schema. So the way you build it, the system will try to relate it in that fashion on the underlying database side. Okay? But on the physical side, you will not go ahead and make any changes. All that you will do is just select InfoCube, optimized for HANA. All right. So again, they will slowly move to that level where they will use HANA as an underlying database because of the speed and the ease of using it. And also a little advice is that, I mean, the entire industry that we see here is moving to a multi-skill environment where you need to have a knowledge on different aspects. Let's say you think if you just have knowledge with BW, that's enough. I cannot completely agree with that. You will need knowledge with your business objects. Your reporting front, you will need knowledge with your data services, which is the new concept they have come up with. So it's always good to have knowledge with all of these tools, and your multi-skill, your probability to have good pays and better jobs will be more when you have multi-skill. You will have your individual servers. You will have integration with ECC and also flat files. You will be able to work on these servers. You will have individual usernames and passwords. So you can make use of the servers. We are going a little away from the topic. SAP BPC is business planning and consolidation. It's a separate module. It's not a new version of BW or anything. Like somebody asked, what is SAP BPC, and is it a new version of BW? No, it is not. Consolidation is a concept where you try to bring in different. Let's say you have a huge business and you have a lot of different streams of your business. Okay. And let's say, for example, data. Data has different streams of business. They deal with automobiles, they deal with power, they deal with a lot of other things as well, insurance and all that. Now at the end of the year, when they ask you for reports, now you want to have a consolidated report of all your different smaller organizations on one report. So when you have to do something like that, you have to consolidate all your individual markets verticals, and then you have to bring them onto a common report. In that scenario, you need to bring all of these on consolidated report. So that is where business planning and consolidation comes into picture. You have concepts of BW in that, yeah. Any other questions, guys? I will not be teaching any scripting in BPC. This course, somebody asked, will you teach scripting in BPC? No, I will not be teaching any scripting in BPC. Yeah, and this is all about your knowledge with that will help. How long is the course? No, I will not be teaching any MDX queries, scripting. We'll be doing core BW. And this will take around 30 hours, 30 to 40 hours for training. We will start off with a little, we'll not rush in the beginning. So we'll try to start off slow, trying to understand, trying to understand the concepts, and then we will improve speed so that we will be looking at different objects and how loading happens and all that. All right. So if you guys can spare time on the weekends, then we'll cover a little more on the weekends than on, we will be looking at COPA and other things as well, controlling and profitability analysis, how we create controlling and profitability analysis data sources, and how do we customize them. We'll be looking at that as well. Okay. All right, guys. So Kalyan will get in touch with you, and he will tell you the timings of the course, and so you can speak with him regarding any questions. All right. So I think we'll call it a day. If you have any questions, you can ask Kalyan, and then I'll get in touch with you guys if you have any questions. All right. So see you around. Hope these classes will start tomorrow or from tomorrow. So I'll hope to see you around in the training sessions. Bye for now. Yeah.